In this video, I'm going to share with you my PSI settings that will help you with your airbrushing. Let's get into it right now. So for fine detailed airbrushing, when using brushes like the GSI Krios PS771 and the CMSB Iwata Micron, I like to run at about 18 to 20 PSI. So for general airbrushing, when using something like the Iwata Eclipse or the GSI Krios PS289, I tend to run at about 30 PSI. So I find that when I want to cover a larger area, I might use something like the Iwata Neo TRN1, an airbrush with a trigger like this, and I might turn my PSI up to about 40 PSI. Depending on how thick your paint is, you can go a little higher if you wish. And you can see here I'm above the 40 PSI. This is great for quick coverage and also atomizing thicker paints. But if it's an extremely large area, then I'll use something like my LPH 80 by Iwata. And this one you can actually run at a lower PSI, but it just gives you really great coverage. Hence why these type of spray guns or mini spray guns are known as HVLP, which stands for high volume, low pressure. Also keep in mind that all of these brushes, as well as the mini spray gun, will perform differently when using different brands of paint and thicknesses. So you need to also get your paint mix right. A general rule that I like to go by is when I lower my pressure, I over thin my paint for detail. And if I'm turning my PSI up, then generally I can run a thicker paint. But my bare minimum is usually a 1:1 ratio. So for my detailed airbrushing, I like using 30% paint, 70% reducer or thinner, depending on what your paint uses. Just keep in mind that it is more difficult to use at that thinned out ratio, so you need to be fairly competent with your airbrush. And the paints that I like using are the Trident water-based airbrush paints. To learn more about my mixtures, I'll pop a link to a video in the description below and you can go check that out. And you don't necessarily have to have a dedicated airbrushing compressor like this. If you've got a normal workshop compressor, that will work fine. A lot of people think you definitely have to have something like this. All I would recommend is that you run a moisture trap and regulator and have that closest to where you are airbrushing. The benefit of something like this is obviously the portability factor and the fact that it's nice and quiet. The other benefit with this unit is that you have two independent moisture trap and regulators, which is great because you've got the two quick connects at the back here. So you can have one airbrush set up for detailed airbrushing at your 18 to 20 PSI, and then you can have one here that's set for a higher PSI, say at around the 30 to 40, and you can use that for all your backgrounds and coverage. So it's a really handy unit, and one that if you are looking for a great airbrushing compressor, I highly recommend. The other beauty of this one is it does have a tank, so it is going to cost you a little bit more because it has a just over 2-litre tank. However, it's going to last you as well because it's got that capacity to run the higher PSIs and it's not working as much. It's not kicking in all the time as some of the other units that are what they call a direct run unit, where they don't have a tank, so the motor just keeps running every time you press down for air on your airbrush. And what you'll find is because they are continuous run units, that when they get very hot, they've got a safety switch in there that'll automatically turn them off. So after about an hour or so of airbrushing, it'll just shut off on you and you've got to wait a couple of hours for it to cool down before you can get started again. So just keep that in mind. So to continue your learning, be sure to check out some of the other videos and playlists that I've got listed here. And until next time, go grab your airbrush, do some amazing artwork yourself, and I'll see you again very, very soon in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.